Okay. My name is Vern Gonion. I'm the past treasurer of the Gift of Time Adult Daycare. I joined adult daycare after I was introduced to Josie by a friend of mine, a friend of ours, and got together with the board, and they decided I was a good candidate to do their books for them for the next few years. So that went fine. I joined the Gift of Time basically because both my parents basically had dementia of one form or another. My dad's family had a whole series of heart problems, and as a result my dad developed vascular dementia in his late 60s, early 70s. All his brothers passed away sometime in their 70s, and he did also. My mother, in the meantime, he had stopped driving when he was about 65, and my mother was also 65 at the time. She hadn't driven since she put his Model A in a ditch when they were dating before they got married. So she basically had like 40 years of non-driving, and so she went out and got herself a driver's license at age 65, and I give her credit for that. She was always a spunky little gal anyhow. and she drove for another 15-20 years before she had to give it up. She was like, she aged about 10 years, I think, in the 2 years that she took care of my dad with dementia, her and my sister up in Green Bay. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I made it up on lots of weekends, but that was about my extent for being a caregiver. It was tough on her. It was sad to see her go downhill so fast in such a short period of time. And my sister would stop in every morning on the way to work and every evening on the way home from work, you know, just make sure everything was still copacetic. Kind of desperation. I mean, that you know it's happening, and there really isn't anything you can do directly about it. You can do a lot of indirect things. You can hire people to come in and assist with that. My sister did a good job of that, in spite of the fact she was holding down a full-time job, you know, and had to drive 20 miles from home back and forth every day, you know, twice a day. So it was just kind of depressing to see my mother go downhill when she was caring for my dad, and my sister lost quite a bit of weight when she was caring for my mother after that. It took a lot of time off of her life, I think, too, you know. And my sister and I are only about 1.5 years apart, and she looks like she's older than I am, you know. So it's depressing. And being from out of town, from out of state and out of town at the time, I mean, I made a lot of extra trips between Chicago and Green Bay, just for weekends to take a load off my sister for the weekend, maybe to take my mom for a ride somewhere, visit some of her relatives. She had lots of relatives up in that area. You know, it just got to the point she couldn't live on her own in her own house anymore, so that we ended up putting her into a retirement community that offered some services like day trips and meals and church services, etc., etc., and she enjoyed it there for about 7 or 8 years before it all caught up with her. She developed Parkinson's, and as a result developed dementia related to Parkinson's, and it got to the point where even there we had to finally put her into a nursing home for the last year of her life, something she definitely did not want, and neither did we. It was just a tough decision to have to do that. So that I say it was bad news. It's something that happens to all of us sooner or later, I imagine. I figure that the Gift of Time is a perfect place to have a Gift of Time is in Georgetown. We have so many senior citizens in Georgetown, all in their 70s to 90s. A big percentage of them are going to need the type of service that adult daycare can provide, not only for the participant but also for the caregiver. And that's probably the biggest thing, is the caregiver piece, to get the caregiver out of the house so that he or she can live a semi-normal life aside from being a constant daycare, you know, 24 hours a day. It's a rough job to haul. Finally, my mother passed away. She was 91 at the time, and she was the youngest of 5 kids in her family, and every one of them lived to be in their mid-90s. Her family had a long lifespan. I'm hoping that I'm somewhere in between the two. I sort of expected that a Gift of Time would already be in a facility operating as a gift of time, providing services for the caregivers and for the participants. However, COVID sort of put a wrench in that whole idea come the beginning of this year. Another big factor is it takes a lot of money to get into a facility in Georgetown. Most of the buildings in Georgetown are old buildings, and no matter what you get, it takes a lot of money to bring them up to code to meet the state requirements for an adult daycare center. So that we've had a few places that lined up and we were ready to go with them, and then you find out it's going to cost you $400,000 for a sprinkler system and some other amendments to, you know, the bathroom facilities, etc., to bring them up to code. And it just, for a 2-year lease or so, it just wasn't worth the investment for that kind of money to only go for 2 years or so. So that most of those just went by the wayside. We had something lined up again for potential new building potential, and that sort of got hung up in COVID, so we don't know where that stands at the current time either. Hopefully we're still looking for a building, and we will pursue that. It's just, if we can get rid of COVID, we'd probably have a lot better chance. We already have some funding for a building and building improvements, but again, it's just COVID has put a wrench in everything. Hopefully by another year or two, things will settle down and we will have a gift of time operating. Yes, it's, you know, we're very grateful to Georgetown and the community and the opportunity to develop a daycare center in Georgetown. We've got a lot of friends in Georgetown, a lot of people that see our cause. It's just a matter of getting it off the ground, and until we can get a facility or get close to having a facility, it's very hard to raise money for donations to get a facility until you actually say, we have this committed to this particular site and we're ready to roll. Are you going to join us?